I really just kind of want to get you thinking about things that you have at your disposal that maybe you're not leveraging, that you could be leveraging to really be optimizing your digital marketing, right? Maybe some things that you haven't even thought about that you're like, oh yeah, I guess I could use that. So first and foremost, why am I even up here talking? As Sam mentioned, my name is JR. Work for a company called Evocalize. We're a technology platform that launches paid digital advertising. But I have 20 plus years of agency experience, which is why I have the gray hairs of what hair I have left. I've been the button pusher. I've been the person that is trying to launch tons of localized campaigns at any given time. It's really hard. If you have even 10 to 15 franchisees or locations that you're trying to run paid digital ads for, you have to basically copy 10 times, 15 times, and you're pushing the buttons and you're logging into the platforms and, oh, maybe I want to run Google and then I want to run Google Display. All of that adds time, right? And so what can we do to maybe help automate some of that, right? So think about data like gasoline. Gasoline by itself doesn't really do much of anything other than maybe not smell amazing, or maybe it smells good for some people. But when you take that gasoline and you put it inside of an engine, now all of a sudden we've got something, right? We've got moving pieces that are optimizing, and we have a high performance machine now. And we just started with gasoline, and data is exactly the same, right? So I've got all of this different data, but by itself it's not really doing much of anything. I have to analyze it. I have to combine it. And by doing that, now I'm really supercharging my marketing, right? So basically think of your different data points as gasoline to help you build a scalable marketing engine. Who am I going to target? What am I going to talk to them about? What message is really going to resonate with them? Where am I going to actually put or when am I actually going to put these things live? What makes the most sense, right? Where are they going to be placed? And then why am I even advertising in the first place? What am I really trying to accomplish here? And then how much am I going to spend, right? All of these decisions have to go into every single digital marketing campaign that you launch, right? And so if I've got multiple franchisees, multiple locations, if I've got different things that are happening within those individual locations, I have to go through this thought process every single time, right? But if we have data powering all of these decisions and we have technology that's underlying this, then I don't have to be kind of going through this thought process every single time. I set up the strategy and I let data kind of dictate how these things or how all of these things are actually happening. So right now, this is where we're going to start to get thought-provoking of, what are kind of some things within my organization that I'm not really actively leveraging right now? So within any organization, regardless of if you're a restaurant or anything, I've got all these different data points, and they're just kind of sitting there, right? But in the future, that could be today, you could pull these different data sets together and actually be running campaigns in the background without you having to do anything, because data is actually triggering these ads from happening. And as we kind of talked about in the previous slide, I've already built in my strategy. I already know who I'm trying to target and what I'm trying to say. I'm just letting the data come in and power all of that, and I can be making pizzas or doing whatever strategic work that I need to do to run my business and not have to focus on digital marketing. So basically, what we're talking about here is automating the publishing of digital advertising, right? So for anybody that has logged into Google, they change their UI, every once in a while. So if you haven't done anything in a while, they just did it a couple of months ago. Meta platforms do the same thing. If you're not launching these things on a day-to-day basis, it can be very daunting when you go in there and try to launch a campaign. And now if you're trying to do that across multiple locations, it's just not a scalable model, right? And so if you can let data publish to all of these individual channels, now all of a sudden it becomes scalable. So I really love this quote. I don't know if I'm allowed to say who it is, but it's a gas station chain that is pretty much in every location everywhere. and it has a lot of numbers in its name. Anyways, what consumers say they'll do does not always equate to what they'll actually do, and sometimes they don't even know what they want, right? So by letting data dictate what's going to publish, by letting data tell me when something is going to happen, now all of a sudden I don't have to be clairvoyant, right? I don't have to guess for these people. And by the way, they don't even know what they want half the time anyways, right? So, you know, for those of you that watched the McDonald's presentation, right? Like that's an example of letting data dictate what they're actually going to put in stores, right? And so why can't we use the same process and do that for targeting very, you know, specific digital marketing and messages to the right people at the right time? So we say data. Data has just become some huge buzzword. I was joking earlier that, you know, if you played a drinking game today, every time that somebody said the word data, you would have been hammered by about 9:30. Right? Every presentation is talking about it, right? And generative AI, right? AI and you know, all of these new things that are coming out, right? Like it's all data points. It's all leveraging data points. And so it's kind of crap in, crap out though, right? So I need to make sure that the data that I'm using and that I'm leveraging is actually going to have some sort of end result. You know, the effectiveness of some of this data, you know, can really vary wildly. So one of the things that we've seen be very successful that we're going to go through here shortly is like weather data, right? Leveraging weather data to actually push ads when maybe it's 75 and sunny. Hey, where the patio's open, right? That's an effective ad, right? But if I have something that says, you know, hey, just wanted to let you know we got a bunch of paper towels in today, like that's not effective, right? So you do have to kind of sit down and think through like what is actually going to, you know, resonate with my audience. So I've got a couple of ideas here, and again, as I mentioned, thought-provoking right before you get into happy hour. So let's get into it. So POS and HR data. POS probably makes the most sense out of this, but we're going to get into some examples here. So what about if I have a bunch of kale sitting in the refrigerator because nobody's eaten it, but I paid for it, right? Everybody has inventory management systems, right? So what if instead of getting that sheet of paper on my inventory, that's actually data that's piped in via an API and it's telling me, hey, you got a ton of kale, so let's discount, right? And it's sending out ads based on that. And, you know, so what about if I have particular product categories that just aren't selling, right? Again, a manual process to review that and then log into Google or Facebook or whatever and launch ads. That's very difficult. So, you know, again, how does this work, right? So basically, you know, this is just kind of one example, and everything that we're going to talk about today is just kind of one example. Just if you walk out of here today with one idea of, oh yeah, I've got that data point that, man, I could you know, run ads off of. That's really my goal today. And so product mix is huge, right? From a restaurant standpoint, you know, especially for, you know, if you're outside of the pizza world, you've got, you know, a ton of different things. I guess even if you're in pizza, you certainly want to branch out. You have new product you know, categories that, you know, are launching, but if something's not working, you know, you want to promote it, right? You want to start pushing that into something so that now all of a sudden, you know, the McChicken is, you know, kind of being blasted out there because it's not selling, you know, as much as I thought. One other thing to think about too is this can vary by location. Right? So if I'm McDonald's, right, and I'm trying to, you know, push the McChicken or whatever, what if my stores in Chicago are not selling, but everywhere else is, right? I'm letting data dictate that, and so then I'm sending out ads only in Chicago for the McChicken, whereas in Denver, I'm sending out Big Mac ads because I'm missing there, right? So data is helping me choose what kinds of ads I should push out based on the product mix that I really want to have in my store. HR data, though, is one of these things that, like, we don't have a ton of partners doing it right now, but I would really love to prove out this concept because it certainly would make some sense. Maybe it's not as specific as the example I said earlier about, like, hey, come in on Friday, but certainly you know what the next week's going to look like, you know, and you know if you're going to have coverage gaps, you know, in the coming weeks or months. And so let your HR system automatically just be sitting in the background. You press a button at the beginning, you say, hey, if this happens, then launch a campaign for $100 for 3 days or something, right? You set the rules up front. And then you let your HR system be pumping in data. Hey, we're good, we're good, we're good, we're good, until we're not good. And now that $100 campaign and the strategy I set up originally goes out, pushes out, and you're still making pizzas, right? You didn't have to go in, do anything. You let the system actually dictate and trigger those ads, right? This one is getting huge. We have one client who literally, for every degree below the average temperature in a particular city, they tie to a revenue loss. And so what we worked with them to do is we obviously know what the temperature is going to be, 24 hours in advance. Well, most of the time, the weather people, I don't know how they keep their jobs. But anyways, we know that, right? Like, so we have the ability for this particular partner to send out ads the day before and really drive people in that day before it drops to 74. So at 77 today, we're going to drive a bunch of revenue so that we can make up for the known revenue loss that we're going to have tomorrow. Right? We're not logging into Facebook and Google to do that. We're basically just piping in a weather feed for that particular city or that particular zip code, and when it doesn't match the threshold, the ad is automatically sent out. So an example of kind of how that works is by individual locations. I didn't actually realize that that icon looks like a snowflake. That doesn't make sense in Florida, but I guess it's a sun. So we basically have this weather feed that's just coming in for the individual zip codes, right? And we match that up against thresholds for a particular week, right? And so that's sent into our system and checked against those thresholds. And then when a trigger happens, out the ad goes. And so, in this example, we have a partner who has patios, right? And some of their locations are kind of up in the Midwest, and right now is about the time where you've been pent up this entire time, right? And so when it hits 75, they really want to promote those patios, so that when that hits 75 and sunny, out go the ads. Come in, our patios are open. You're going to have a great time, right? And pushes out to all the channels. This one is one that we had a conversation at lunch today about AI, and man, it's going to be a very interesting world here in the next year or so. I don't know if any of you saw the story. It was about a healthcare company, like a therapy, kind of thing, that was using an AI chatbot, and the chatbot was being incredibly insensitive to people who were asking it questions about an eating disorder. Right? It was factually accurate, but it was super insensitive in the way. Yeah, right, exactly, right? So you've sort of let AI, kind of dictate that, and you thought it was a good idea, and out it goes, and you've really hurt the brand because you've let this happen. Social and news events are really great to act on, but they require a lot of strategy up front. So I hesitate to bring it up, but I know how important it can be when the topic du jour is out there, and you want to be part of the conversation because whatever it is out there, but you have to be super, super careful. So all these things that we were kind of talking about in terms of automating, this is the one that kind of reminds you that a solid strategy does not take place for just technology. Andy mentioned it today, right? Like, I don't want to just have generative AI unless I have a solid strategy of how that AI is going to act. And social and news triggers are exactly the same way. So you have to be very, very cautious, but just in the same way that, I don't know, Kim Kardashian or something says something, right? If she's aligned with our brand, then maybe it's okay. We strategize it, and when she says something in particular, out goes an ad, that's great. But if something happens politically or whatever, maybe we don't want to send out an ad for it. So strategy is the most important thing when you're using social and news triggers. I'm just going to kind of run through this because, again, happy hour. This, to me, is the number one thing that you should be, if you are not leveraging CRM and CDP data, CDP, for those of you who don't know, Customer Data Platform, this allows for segmentation. And I'm sure everybody who's an operator understands that I have different segments, right? I've got, families, I've got single people. Solomon was talking about, he had a very specific audience, right? You understand that, But the way that I'm going to message a family of 4 versus a single college student is completely different. For me to sit down as a marketer, and I've been doing this for many years, and sitting in front of a whiteboard to segment out that and then ultimately run those campaigns is very, very difficult. If I just basically strategize and set it up once, then basically what happens is I'm basically feeding in data, and that data could be messaging, right? So it flip side from what we were talking about earlier, where I have like POS triggers and all of that. This is triggering messaging and basically moving audiences to different groups. So an example, I have a loyalty program, let's say, right? I want to build up that loyalty program. So I've got top of funnel stuff that I'm trying to build awareness and grow that list. As people submit their information, they now move to the second bucket. The second bucket is I've signed up, but I've not actually used my promo code, or I haven't come into the store. Then they actually use that promo code, or they do actually come in. Now they move to the third bucket, right? All of that already set up, right? You do that once, you set it and forget it. The program is just constantly running. What's moving and what's changing, the data that's actually being piped in, is just their behavior with your brand, right? That's the most sophisticated marketing that you really could be doing from a digital standpoint. It's the old adage of the right message at the right time to the right person, right? Everybody always says that. It's hard to do. And it's hard to do for me, and I've been doing this for 20 plus years. It takes a lot of time. Now multiply that times the number of locations that you have, and multiply it by the number of segments you have, right? All of a sudden, this is very, very difficult. However, if I've got a list of all my locations, that's being fed in, I've got segments being piped in for all of these different audiences, I don't have to do anything. And the other, I guess, data point would be the messaging for those individual audiences, right? So I've got 3 data sets that are coming in and automatically running these ads, and I didn't have to do anything. I mean, I set it up at the beginning, but outside of that, I'm still making pizzas on a day-to-day basis, right? I'm not launching ads. This one, to me, is, again, if you're not doing this type of advertising, you really, really need to be. Because if you've got this data, if you've got CRM and CDP data, you know what people are doing. You know how they're interacting with your brand. You know what they like. Do they like cheeseburgers versus, salads or whatever? Well, if I'm McDonald's and I'm serving you up an ad for a salad and you never eat salads, that's probably not going to resonate very well. So if I can build some of these segments and automatically be sending ads as, I might start as a cheeseburger guy, but then I find the salad and I'm like, man, that's really cool. And so as I eat the salad, now I'm put in that salad group, right? Again, as the marketer, I don't have to do anything. I already set up these product mix, audience segments, and I'm letting data kind of feed the engine. So those were just a couple of quick examples. I've got some more slides here, but I just want to kind of reiterate and hit the point home of you can leverage data, any type of data, to be running sophisticated marketing campaigns. You don't have to be pressing the buttons. You don't have to be logging into these channels every single time that you want to run digital marketing. You should be setting it up once, setting that strategy up, and then letting the data kind of tell you what message and what audience to be triggering or sending ads to. But it's super easy, actually. All of that stuff that I just walked through, it's not that difficult, because tools like ours, but there's other tools that are out there. We basically are fed this data through APIs, so we do it automatically. We're tied in with POS systems. It's just automatically coming over. But we have some people that are like, I don't know what an API is. It sounds like an eye chart. I've got this Excel file that I'm emailed every day. And they email us just that Excel file of PMix and weather data or whatever, right? You can ingest that. So it doesn't have to be super technical to be leveraging an API. You can just basically be pulling in CSV files. So you have all of these different options. Obviously, the APIs and that direct connections are the easiest. But you can leverage this today. You can start using this tomorrow to be indicating what type of ads you should be sending out tomorrow. So we need to feed the machine, right? Learning. So we're letting the channels, now that I'm actually, kind of putting in ads and I'm running ads, I'm letting the channels also kind of provide me with data too. And then, as I mentioned, we're optimizing based on that data, right? So I'm letting data feed and indicate my initial strategy and push out ads automatically, but then I'm letting the machine kind of continue to optimize, and then I can evaluate whether something's working or not. So you could do this today, right? You could download that Excel spreadsheet, as I mentioned. You could go log into Google and Facebook. You could do this today, but the reason that you probably don't is that it's super time consuming, right? And so if I have multiple ads in, I've got Seattle, Denver, Austin, right? I might have the exact same campaign, but I want to localize this stuff, right? Just to do that is, probably an hour's, worth of time for you to kind of sit down and go through and just create 3 ads, right? Even though they're the same, but you need to localize them. So that's very difficult. But I can do it, right? I can hit 1, 2, 3. It's a manual process. But as we talked about today, data can power all of this stuff, right? So I could have a listing of all my locations, and I've got subsequent images that are tied to that and messaging that's tied to that. That's just in the system just waiting to be triggered, right? And so instead of me having to push 3 buttons, I just set it up at the beginning, and it's basically the power of 0, right? Data is triggering these campaigns automatically while you're busy doing something else that's probably way more important than logging into Google. So if I can leave you, again, with one thing, it is that you really should be leveraging data to drive your digital marketing. If all you're doing is basically like, hey, we've got an LTO, let's send out an ad, that's great, because you should be doing digital marketing. But if you can add on top of that the ability to hyper-target, the ability to localize, the ability to, kind of pinpoint an ad and a message that's going to resonate with that audience, you're going to be doing significantly better than your competitors. Shockingly enough, some of the largest brands in the world that I've worked with aren't doing hyper-targeted advertising, and they're not doing it because it's very hard to do, as we talked about, right? But if you're leveraging data to do that, even if you're a local brand that only has 5 locations or 10 locations, you could be running more sophisticated digital marketing than some of the largest brands that you've heard of, right? So my favorite emoji, I use this a lot. I don't know what that says about me. Maybe it means I question everything. I don't know. But these are the questions that I want you to walk out of here today with. Based on what you're trying to do, what your business, is trying to do. Do I have, PMix problems? Do I have loyalty, situations where I'm not targeting, individual segments? What are the things that, could actually be optimizing my digital marketing and actually hyper-targeting, what I'm doing today? And again, it doesn't have to be difficult, right? So sit down with a piece of paper and just kind of look through what you've got. What are some data points and data sets that I can use to help assist the digital marketing that I'm doing today? So our system does this today. This is the only sales pitch that I will give you. We will be out there at happy hour. I promise you're only a minute away from that. If you'd like to talk about how we're doing this for some other partners and some other ideas, I would love to nerd out about data. But the whole goal is I want everybody here who is an operator to understand that they should be fully automating their digital marketing, and it's going to be much more optimized because it's hyper-targeted and hyper-local. And that's all I got. Let's go drink.